We are joined by two incredible women in tech. I know this is going to be like, we're going to do them back to back, and then you can talk to all the panelists after. We're joined by two incredible women in tech. They are actually trailblazing in AI, in different parts of, and they've had different software journeys as well. And so I think that's really pertinent to also just Silicon Valley in general. With that, I would love to just kick off with some intros. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got in tech.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laika Kayani. I lead product management for platform at a company called Optum Insight. It's a United Health Group entity, and I joined them about 2 years ago. It felt a bit accidental. Prior to that, I started my own company. It was called High Grid Health. It was really about helping patients access their health records all in one place and creating a digital identity for patients. So started as a entrepreneur, have been in healthcare, did consulting, worked for different organizations, but my career largely has been in healthcare and in product.
Amazing, thank you. Nabila?
Folks can hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Nabila Babar. I am also leading product. I'm leading product for the richest company in the world right now, Microsoft. And it's not any product. It is an AI product. It's not AI, it's generative AI. So it's kind of amazing to be at a place where, as AI is really prominent in our mind, it's changing the world. To be kind of at the thick of it is humbling and an honor as well. Before this, I was in machine learning. Before there, I was in AI as well, thinking about how you bring it to disconnected devices. Before that, I worked a lot on data. My bachelor's is in electrical and computer engineering, and it's wonderful to see folks here, and I'm excited to be here.
Amazing, thank you so much. So, I think in the tech world, we all have very colorful backgrounds, and we all have extremely nonlinear backgrounds, and sometimes we're ending up in different spaces. How do you guys, Laika, how did you actually navigate going from kind of like founder to tech, like back to corporate, and kind of falling into these different industries?
Yeah, great question. You asked a similar question at the last panel. I was like, yes, I have such a non-linear background. It kind of started with, when I was in college, my parents were like, "Beta, be a doctor, lawyer, and engineer," and I'm like, yes, I could. Yeah, everybody, right? And so I thought I was going to be a doctor, and I applied for dental school. I did my pre-med, and I, went down the route of applying. And while I was applying, I decided I also was really interested in finance and corporate finance, specifically in helping businesses. I was working at a dental office, and so I went into finance, and I had some friends who were in consulting, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. They get to travel. I like business. I like to learn about different companies. And so I really just right away, instead of pursuing dentistry, I went and did consulting, and I loved it. I love learning about different healthcare entities, how they operated, and I really realized that at some point the way I had really deep healthcare expertise, but I lacked this knowledge about technology, and I wasn't, I was telling Nabila earlier that I'm not, I don't have an engineering background, but I was deeply passionate about technology, and so I became the chief of staff to a CIO at a really large health plan, and that's where I cut my teeth in tech. And I learned every day. I would show up, and I'm like, what do I need to learn about data centers? What do I need to learn about data for healthcare? How do we process claims information? And so it was just this deep passion for learning tech and knowing that healthcare can be transformed through technology. And so I was very intentional in terms of the leaps that I wanted to make. I went from being a chief of staff within the health plan. I went and led a health innovation technology team, which was really about testing and learning emerging technologies and applying them in healthcare and actually putting them to use. And I knew that eventually I wanted to start my own company, so I went to a AI/ML healthcare startup. I led product there in a couple different roles. And I jumped right into building my own company. And I think the non-linear nature of my career, a lot of that comes as a result of just being incredibly curious about the things that I don't know. And I know healthcare, and I know I have a deep passion for transforming healthcare, but technology, every day I'm like, I just don't know about generative AI. So how am I going to go like tell Nabila I need to like be best friends with you so I can learn everything about how I could use, Microsoft technology in my company to go transform. And so just out of deep curiosity and learning to just take risks, being really, really comfortable taking risks.
No, that's incredible. And Nabila, that actually segues into my question to you is you've built so many different products across the AI spectrum, right? Like, how are you thinking about this? How was your journey into the space? And like, what new things are you seeing come up in the tech sector?
Awesome question. So for me, my journey has been linear. I did engineering, I started in product, but at each phase, I've tried to make myself uncomfortable. And I always think about what are my 3 things? And in the beginning of my career, those 3 things were very simple things, like I want to send a good email, or I want to do this, or I want to finish this project well. And as I grow in my career, those 3 things become harder and harder and harder. I remember maybe like a year or 2 ago, my goal was like, I want to tell a CVP what to do. I don't want to ask them, I want to tell them what to do. And it's funny, I was talking to a coworker and I was like, dude, I'm telling CVPs what to do all the time now. Now what's my next thing? So I think for me, it's been pretty linear, and I've gotten deeper and deeper within technology and going around different areas, but it's always been either growing my people skill, my technical skill, or my product skills. Those are kind of the 3 levers I try to pull. And we were talking about this a little earlier. I started in product, and I've been in product, and now I'm actually really curious to go back to or think about like how are things built really well. So I also you don't have to stick in one profession as well. You can kind of jump around thinking about whether it's product, it's data science, or it's dev as well. For me, I find a lot of passion or interest in the things that I'm uncomfortable with today, that I can't do well, and the things that will drive me tomorrow. And over time, as I start looking into these, the things that made me uncomfortable before aren't the same anymore, and I see myself growing. But I continue to make myself uncomfortable. In terms of AI, it's been interesting. I joined Azure Machine Learning is the platform that all of the AI at Microsoft runs on, as well as our customers as well. So I was in the platform team, and before generative AI even was a thing, that's where I was a product manager there, and our customers were data scientists. In the last year and a half, our world has kind of turned upside down, where our customers are now millions of developers that don't have data science background, and the application of AI is now applicable to any industry in the world. And it is moving at a pace that is just like pretty much every week I'm learning something new, and within like 3 months, the last thing you learned is no longer like as relevant as it was. You're just learning new things continuously. All of the product principles that you know as a product manager at this phase in your career go out the window. You cannot go to a customer and ask them, hey, like, what should I build? You can't, like, they don't know. They're looking to Microsoft. They're looking to you to say, hey, like, this is my problem. What is the best way to solve it in a very, very evolving industry? So in this space, I think what's working most for me right now, or the best for me, is being really hands-on, being really, really hands-on with the product. That's something that I do. I'm the biggest user of my own product. And then I think the other thing is not having an ego. I screw up every single day. I don't know a lot of stuff, and I'm okay with it. I just keep on learning more and more. I think that's the second thing. And the third is, and it's interesting that we were talking about this earlier as well, is it's interesting that like we think AI or generative AI is an abstraction, right? It's going to help us automate things or be more productive, but in a space like this, it actually it's more important to know your fundamentals. I'm learning linear algebra again. And the reason why that is generative AI can be wrong. And it's wrong so confidently that you would have no idea, right? So if we take the calculator example, and you're saying, hey, like now I can have a calculator that does my math for me. You have to know if the math is right or wrong, right? And it's in a space right now where I think last year was a year of demos for Gen AI. This year is a year for not demos, but solving more real-world applicable problems. So, for example, I don't know if, has anyone ever asked ChatGPT what time it is? Yeah.
I've asked it like the weather,
And
I've asked it
what happened?
how it's doing. Oh, it
doesn't know.
It answers
So I have a
confidently.
funny story.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to my dad what I do for a living, and I couldn't. And it's funny, he's like, okay, I give him ChatGPT, I was like, hey, try this. And the first thing he does is he asks it, when is Eid? And I'm like, shoot, and it's wrong. He's like, this is what you do? like he just dismissed it. And that's where, like, when you look at the trend right now, AI is going towards, or generative AI is going towards a space where it's going from, it's trained on limited knowledge. How do you train it on multiple skills in a way where it knows what the time is, it knows what the weather is, it knows how to call your own data, it knows which function to call, and that it knows that through orchestration. So really the trend is, Fatma talked about this earlier as well, is building more agent-like applications and real-world applications that are bringing more complexity, but it's actually then connected multiple different data sources in a way where it's aware and it knows which action to take.
Wow, yeah, no, I mean, I feel like you just gave a quick crash course on anybody who didn't really know AI, and I feel like I need my parents to listen to you too. You know, like in this day and age when we have so much technology just being like spread, what's really key to you guys as tech leaders to really be implementing, as a leader, like, we need to either have like these certain goals for our technology, or we need to have certain privacy constraints or risks. Like, what is the most pertinent thing on your desk today? That's just because it's such an ever-changing industry, Nabila, like you were saying. So what are like really main concerns today that you're facing in tech? Go ahead, Laika.
I'm going to take the healthcare angle. This is public knowledge, but our company just went through the largest cybersecurity attack in U.S. healthcare history. And security is obviously top of mind for us, so we are building security, and we ideally have been building security in everything that we do, but next level, and I think every organization, especially healthcare companies, are thinking about that. I think the thing that I care about a lot, very, very deeply, is using healthcare data safely. One of the things that we are really good at in the healthcare industry is to prioritize sick care. We don't prioritize wellness. We don't prioritize healthcare. And so how do we generate data that is more reflective of the complete story of a patient? Because a lot of healthcare happens outside the four walls of a hospital system. And so how do we make sure we protect the data? How do we make sure the data is complete? And how do we make sure that our risk models on patients, that you'd be surprised, like I'm probably talking, and you're like, risk models, like what does that have to do with anything? Well, a lot of risk models are generated based on, so imagine when you're getting your health insurance, your employer is getting a health insurance from a payer, and they're assessing the risk of their entire pool. And they're doing that based on claims data. And claims data only exists if you've gone to the hospital and it's generated a claim, right? And so imagine all the data that doesn't exist, that should actually go into, evaluating the risk profile of a group. And so those are things that I think about very, very deeply, and I care about very deeply. And so I'm really helping my teams and my organization to think about the data that doesn't exist today, and how might we think about bringing that into kind of telling a better picture about healthcare.
Wow, I really didn't think about risk models like that. I'm like, oh, what are all my claims? What's gone on, Nabila, what about you? How do you think about it from a product manager standpoint?
So when we think about it, the product that I lead has kind of 4 pillars, bringing any type of models to customers, to developers, tooling. The third pillar is responsible AI, and fourth is enterprise. And I think your question is related to the last two. How do you build safety and responsibility into your applications, and then how do you do it in a way that's secure to your company as well? And it starts with, it starts all the way up through the entire product life cycle. It's something that is ingrained horizontally. You can't just like apply it as a layer at the end. What that means is when you're developing your application, what are the right evaluation tools that you need to be able to say that this model is giving a response that is grounded in the data that I trained it on, or the data that I want. What happens with LLMs a lot is they have hallucinations where they're giving either verbose answers, or because these are pre-trained on data from the internet. So we have the abilities to add like content filters, for example, that'll filter out harmful content from the input or the output of your application. But these tools and these capabilities really, you start, all of their theme really is observability, right? You want observability when you're developing your application, you want observability when you're deploying your application, and you want observability when your customer's using it as well in like a front end. So I think evaluation is a big trend that you see right now in the market, where folks are evaluating models by certain metrics, and these metrics can be anything in terms of the performance, accuracy, but also then bringing safety into it as well. Like you can actually calculate how much harmful content it's producing. You can add filters for those as well. You can add filters for, a lot of times in here, folks try to jailbreak these applications. Well, they'll try to make it undo what it has learned or what it's supposed to do. We have tools for that as well. But really the key theme in this space right now is observability, so you know exactly what's going on. Debugging and tracing capabilities as well help you kind of break down your entire application and see what happened at every single API call within it. So when you're building tools like these, I think that's one part of it. The second big part I think you touched on a lot is privacy and security, both in terms of your data. So when you're connecting to your data assets, doing it in a way that's secure. And this will be even more important because as we start talking about, we talked about this earlier, as we start building more like agent-like workflows, you have to be able to connect to multiple data sources. Which means you need a common data layer, but that has to be secure. So I think those would be the trends I would think about.
No, that makes, and so, you know, we've gone into sort of your guys' like technical journeys, how you guys got here. I want to take one step back, and, you know, one thing that I've been seeing across panelists is like we nuance our thought a lot, right? Like we're thinking about things, and there's always this question of like, how do we bring our full selves to work? You know, Nabila, when we were on the call, you were kind of like, I'm an engineer at Microsoft, and then I'm a woman, and then I'm in AI, right? Like it's all these different identities. Like you've been a founder, you've gone into, again, like you went to Optum, you're dealing with security breaches. Like we wear so many different identities and hats in our own worlds. How do you show up? Like, how do you show up as your full self? Like, as a woman, as a person of color, as somebody who's a tech leader. You know, we are minorities within minorities within minorities. So it's like, how you know, to people who are inspired by you guys, how would you show them kind of the roots and the ropes?
Yeah, I think it's contextual. I think it's and situational. You know, I think when we were prepping, one of the examples I gave is when I was just in a team meeting, and there were a bunch of engineers and product managers and architects, and we're all in a group together, and I typically don't walk into a conversation where I'm like, oh, I'm this person of color, I'm a woman, you don't typically walk into those conversations, but you know, there was a situation where there was a male colleague talking over a female colleague, and especially a female colleague of color. And at that moment, you have to put yourself into the position of like, now you're a woman, now you're a person of color, and you say, hey, can you pause? You just cut her off, and of course in the most tactful way possible, and say, please let her speak. Please let her speak, and it's really important. I think, again, it's speaking up during, you know, those moments where you believe that there are people that are being underrepresented. They are folks that we should be talking about. You know, I work for a company based in Minneapolis, and one of their biggest initiatives is DEI, and I raised my hand and I was like, I want to be a part of that. And you know, I looked at some of their initiatives last year, and a lot of it was like about female empowerment, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, glad we're doing female empowerment, but like, where are we addressing people of color? Where are we talking about, you know, equality? Like, we don't talk about a lot of those things, and bringing those perspectives at moments that are contextual is really important. So I feel proud that I get to wear many hats. I get to be the person of color. I get to be the founder that, you know, was solo. I get to be all those things, but, you know, knowing how to apply those things at the moment, at the right moments, is really important.
Yeah, I think especially in tech, like we're our brains almost, right? We're not thinking we're, you know, Muslim or a woman or like a person of color until it's spotlighted. And I used to remember this when I was working in finance. I was always just like the women on the team, and it was like 20 guys, and I was like, oh, I can really feel this right now. So it's almost like, you know, Nabila, why don't you comment on like how do you take up space like in those rooms? You know, you are working in a cutting edge research like technology right now. Like, how are you taking up space in those rooms? Yeah.
So it's funny, 2 weeks ago we had something called Build, which is a big conference, and I was asked, the session was called Women in AI, and I was supposed to go practice for it, and I was like, it was a time where we were releasing our product, and my mindset was so different. It was in like, we gotta get this thing done, and I go to like, and I meet all these producers that are super like in a whole different mode, and they're like, so Nabila, tell us, what is it like to be a woman in AI? And I'm like, I don't think about that. I don't get up in the morning and I think I'm a woman in AI. I'm working in AI and I happen to be a woman. So we ended up changing the title of that. And that's usually my mindset. And that doesn't mean that I'm trivializing being a female in tech, but I think it's a different mindset. And the way I deal with it, or the way that what I believe is, I think each person has their way of being their authentic self, and you have things that you're really good at. And I think leaning into those, and I just lean into the things that I'm good at while I'm aware of the things that I need to grow. I think that has been continuously something that has helped me in this space. I'm in a space now in my career where I'm trying to have a very loud voice. And the way you do that is, and I want to have a loud voice in rooms where it matters, right? The way I think I've realized I've done that in the last year or two, my career has changed a lot. And I think the way it happened is, I used to seek mentorship. I stopped doing that. Now I seek sponsorship, and I'm very, very clear about it. I'm a lot more thoughtful about the value that I bring to an organization, and I want that in return as an investment in me. It's not just I'm lucky to be here. You're lucky to have me here, is my mindset now, which means, one, you want to seek sponsorship. You have to deliver for that. You can't just go and ask for something without bringing that, but one, you have to deliver, but that's kind of the mindset that you want to change. And then I think the other thing that's worked a lot for me is I have a core group of folks that support me. And as you grow in your career, you need to create that core group that is kind of bringing you up and making sure that your voice is heard. As a PM, that biggest supporter is your engineering counterpart. Your engineering your engineering counterpart to their boss and their boss's boss needs to have really, really strong relationships with you, because they lift you up in a way that no one else can. I think those would be the two things, and they help amplify your voice a lot of times as well. So investing in that, finding your voice and knowing your value, and asking for that in return.
Yeah, no, I think just finding your voice. I like the point you said about sponsorship. I don't think a lot of us have defined that. And thinking about sponsorship, it's almost like finding people that will promote you in areas, or not cut you off, and really trying to propagate you in your career. I know we just have another few minutes left. My last question is if you had some imparting words of advice for women who are early on in tech, or some of us who are more mid-career, how do we make those jumps? How do we really get to the next level? Because I think everything in tech is like, let's level up, level up, level up. Things are changing all the time. So how would you, advise somebody who's either younger than you or maybe at the same level in their journeys?
Yeah, I would say find the thing that you're passionate about and go do it really well. But don't be afraid to take risks. I look at my nonlinear career and I'm like, well, the reason why I ended up where I wasn't afraid to take the risk, and I was just super, super curious and went very deep in the things that I needed to learn. And have no limits. Don't constrain yourself. Don't put boundaries that really don't need to exist. I think it's often easy to be like, I'm a woman, I'm a person of color, and those things can be they're external biases that get applied to you, but really walk into a crowd knowing that you could do literally anything you could put your mind to and just go. Don't limit yourself, but find your passion. Do it from a place of passion and walk through doors, and don't be apologetic. I do things very unapologetically.
Very powerful. Nabila?
I'll kind of add to that. So I'm at a phase right now where at Microsoft it's all career discussions and rewards and promos. So you have multiple people coming to a room asking you, why didn't I get promoted? So it's a very interesting topic to ask right now. And one thing I've seen is if you make your promotion your goal, it's often actually the opposite of what happens then. You end up getting so fixated on that promo or that dollar sign that you want that your performance goes down. I know it might seem counterintuitive what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't aim big, but don't get so obsessed with that goal of I want that next promo to a point, be self-aware that it may actually hurt you so much that you're not getting it, that you're not aware of why you're not getting it. So similar to kind of what you're saying, I think the most important things are inputs. What are the inputs that you're driving that are going to lead to the goal? Have enough confidence or to know that that outcome that you want, you'll get it, right? You'll get it, but make sure the right inputs are also getting recognized and you're aware of the opportunities and levers that you can pull where you are. And the biggest thing if you're I can speak for product, the biggest thing is what value are you driving for your users? Getting obsessed with that, right? And I think for me, I love working in a big tech is interesting because sometimes you do things that you kind of sometimes lose sight of the value to the customer because there's so much processes, there's so many demos and presentations, and you can ship stuff, right? And you can celebrate that, or you can give a talk, right? But I think for me, I obsess over. I can do all of those, but what did that lead to? What is the impact it led to, the customers? I think that is something that drives me. If you just focus on that and kind of experiment with it, bring back your engineering mindset of what are the different experiments or levers I can pull to drive impact there, that would be the biggest thing that'll get you to your next promotion or your where you want to go. And then also be strong enough to know that you can use your feet to vote at some point as well, right? At some point, if you're not getting what you want, have the courage to say, I'm going to go do a different job, or I'm going to try to do something different elsewhere. I think you have to be able to pull that lever at some point if you're not getting what you want.
Oh, that's wonderful. I really, really appreciate your guys' time. This has been incredible. I think that there's so much inspiration you've given to the audience. If you do want to chat with our lovely panelists, please do so. They're going to actually probably just be right there, right? Yeah. And if you are a budding entrepreneur or going into tech, I think these are some really, really big trailblazers in their spaces. So, and also learn about Gen AI. Teach your parents from her. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.